The city's in good shape, and it's the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
My next guest I'd like to bring on by introducing him this way. Here's your three-time alderman from the 15th Ward, weighing in at, let me look at you, 128 pounds soaking wet, throwing his weight around city council floor yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Alderman Raymond Lopez.
Ready to rumble. Yes, sir. Good morning.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's good.
Live and in person.
Ray, I'm doing a show in Kansas City every day, so I focus a lot on that. And sometimes it takes my eye off the ball as far as what's going on here, but you can't get away from it if you live here. And this is my hometown. Jane, yesterday I'm watching the Twitter feed, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, and this guy is tweeting up a storm.
Let me see your thumbs.
Yeah, let me see your thumbs.
Check them out. Oh, they look pretty good. Fit.
All muscle.
Yeah. Those thumbs were working overtime yesterday. So let me get this right, Alderman. Yesterday, Brandon Johnson, with some other mayors, goes out to Washington, D.C. to ask the Biden administration for help with this migrant crisis that we're seeing. Biden administration is offering $1.5 billion with a B dollars. Brandon Johnson wants $5 billion. Am I correct so far?
So far, so good.
Okay, so the issue at hand is what you and some of your constituents want to do is put on the ballot whether or not Chicago should be labeled a sanctuary city. Because it seemed like when Lightfoot was here, or whoever made it this way, Rahm, good in theory, not so good in practice, because we're not ready for this. You know that. You see it every day.
Yep.
So you want to get that on the ballot for the people to decide whether or not Chicago should be a sanctuary city.
You know, when this went from being an academic exercise to a humanitarian catastrophe, voters have a right to be heard. We know there's a lot of sentiment out there, a lot of questions, a lot of people who feel that it's time to change the policy. If this is what's driving people to send migrants by the thousands here every single day, maybe we should have a citywide conversation on this. And the good government crowd said, hold up, we don't want to talk about this. We just want to be able to stick to our narrative, keep saying we're a welcoming city, keep saying we're a sanctuary city. We need to have an excuse to beg for more money from Uncle Joe. And we're not going to let the people make a decision. And they pulled every trick in the book, broke every rule, bent every law, twisted every arm, literally, to prevent yesterday's vote from happening. But we'll be back Tuesday morning, 9:45, to continue forward because the people of Chicago want and deserve to have their voices heard.
Well, and originally, Chicago became a sanctuary city in 1985.
Yes.
And that was when we weren't getting thousands of migrants being bused to the city. So now it's, okay, let the citizens decide what we want to do. Yesterday, what happened, have you ever witnessed a city council meeting like that?
In all of my years there, no. I've only read about even things like this in the history books when during the council wars, the people opposing Harold Washington pulled those same tactics that we saw the progressives and the mayor's allies of today pull on the aldermen trying to give the people of Chicago a voice. And let's go back a little bit, too, because in 1985, when Harold Washington issued the executive order creating Chicago as a welcoming city, it was because of the fact that immigration had gotten so far out of control. We had undocumented individuals everywhere, including my husband, who at that time, him and his family were undocumented. You had to give some protections because there was no leadership from Washington. Again, and then in 1986 and signed in 1987, Ronald Reagan granted amnesty to everyone who was here, giving Congress and the federal government the ability to hit the reset button to come up with a solution. Fast forward 40 years, nothing's been changed, nothing's been done, no action's been taken, failure by Congress and everyone down there. But yet we are here at this moment where we have 4 million people crossing into this country since October of last year to October of this year. 2.3 million we know about, 1.6 million we can't identify. And yet now, after the border states and everyone said this is a crisis, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, the borders are, please do something. They took it upon themselves to say, you know what, fine, let them come in and we're going to share the pain with everybody. And now everyone's buckling under the pressure. And Chicagoans deserve a voice to say whether or not they want to remain that magnet for the politics of failure.
This radio station has a ridiculously huge reach. I mean, it's out there in the suburbs. It's downstate. If you have a question for
Because of
Alderman
you two.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what it is. 312-591-8900 if you have a question for Ray. But Alderman Lopez, my question is this: is that you're rooted in the Hispanic community. You see people that have done immigration the proper way, people that have waited in line for a long, long time to come to this country and do it right. And now you're seeing your resources depleted for your residents, for your constituents. I mean, the marginalized communities in this city, and there are many, are the ones that are being impacted the most. We have gymnasiums. We have police stations overrun with migrants. We have migrants sleeping on sidewalks. We're getting ready to build a tent city. How do you
3 blocks from my house?
How do you rectify this with your constituents?
There's no way you can justify what's going on right now to those individuals who either came here legally or who have been waiting in the shadows without papers. Our DACA kids who've been waiting for some sort of hope to become naturalized, even though they've been in this country almost their entire lives. There's no way to turn to the African American community and say, we don't know why we can't invest in your community, but we miraculously found $255 million for these individuals. You have to be able to help everybody simultaneously and not pick and choose winners and losers. Lori did that, and now we're seeing Brandon Johnson do that.
You know, how much of this is just about flat out cash? Because I heard Brandon Johnson in a press junket yesterday say, you know what, that $5 billion isn't only for the immigration problem. Well, then what's it for?
This is another cash grab because the COVID money that was granted during the shutdown is coming to an end. Everything that was unspent, unallocated, and undistributed from the federal government is due back in Washington by 2026 if we haven't spent it, which is hop, skip, and a jump away. They're looking for their next cash cow to come and save cities like Chicago from its mismanagement and poor fiscal accountability because of the fact that we simply don't have enough in our economy because we've killed it to try and lift our city up right now. And they're using the Venezuelan migrant crisis to get more money in.
We're going to take a break. We're going to get news from Nick, and then I'm sure our newsman, we're going to get a traffic update from Nick, and then I'm sure our newsman, Nick A., will have a question for you, Ray, and we've got some callers that want to say hi to you as well.
Awesome.
But I want to ask you about Carlos Ramirez-Rosa. I want to ask you what in the world a socialist portion of our city council is, and then I want to ask you what the heck went on there yesterday, and did he actually get rough with an alderwoman? Okay, we'll do that coming up next. It's Jane. It's Ray. Ray.
Oh, Ray and Ray.
Ray Lopez.
I like it.
And
It's a Jane sandwich.
this is WLSAM 890. Ray Stevens. Jane is here. Alderman Ray Lopez from the 15th. Alderman, I want to read you a text message. I've been a conservative all my life. I was a Republican election judge in Chicago several years. And Ray Lopez is the only person in Chicago politics that I trust. He's proven himself time and time again. He cares about Chicago. He cares about the people who live there in his neighborhood. He's the only one telling the truth. Keep it up, Mr. Lopez. We need about 100 more of you in Chicago politics.
Thank you, sir.
It's nice to hear, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
That was from Amanda and Dyer.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, tell me what happened with Carlos Ramirez-Rosa yesterday when you got this going on. You're trying to get the numbers of the people of the floor to vote on whether or not Chicago is going to be a sanctuary city if it goes on the ballot and let the, God forbid, why would you want the constituents, why would you want the voters, the people that live here to decide this? What exactly did this guy do that got you so fired up with one of the, and who was the alderwoman, by the way?
So this involves Alderman Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, alderman of the 35th Ward. He's the mayor's floor leader. He's the mayor's handpicked chairman for the Committee on Zoning and Building Standards. So if you want to you want to build a 2-flat instead of a 1-flat, you got to go to him. Every alderman's ward intersects with zoning. Alderman Emma Mitz is from the west side, 37th Ward, and she was in the she was in the annex, the room behind the city council, trying to get into the chamber to vote. Now, and especially in any city council meeting, you need at least 26 members, half plus one, to show up in order to do business. It was publicized, and he was making every effort. You saw some of the text I was showing where he was telling members of the city council, don't come in, go find something to do. Don't worry about it. We're not going to get to 26. Well, we did get to 26. Actually, we got to 30, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
But as we were trying to get the roll call taken, we kept seeing Carlos popping in and popping out, so he couldn't be counted. But out of the corner of my eye, I see by the door, because I sit on the edge of the city council room, I could see him and Emma Mitz in the doorway. I immediately told the presiding officer to instruct the sergeant at arms to go get them. I see them. They're hiding in the back. Bring them in so we can talk.
So they were hiding so they wouldn't be counted.
Well, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So then she refuses to do that. The presiding officer refuses to do that because she's also handpicked by the mayor. She goes to Alderman Beal, who I believe have spoken with.
Oh, yeah.
And he starts talking about what we're doing, and he's taking his time. He's not in a hurry to get through what he needed to say. So I ran in the back to go find out what the holdup was. And then it turned out quite literally it was a holdup. My colleague Emma Mitz was being accosted by Carlos Ramirez-Rosa. He was grabbing her by the arm. He was using his body to prevent her physically from getting around him. And I walked back there and said, "Come on, Emma, let's go." And she's like, "I can't." And he was wedging himself between me and her as I'm trying to talk to him, making a Carlos sandwich. And I'm like trying to motion, and I don't realize that he's still holding on to her as she's trying to move towards the door. And he kept moving with her in tandem to stop her from getting to the door, which was only 6 feet away. So realizing that he's still nudging along with her, I basically took up position right behind him, leaned in, and I just stopped. Kind of like the old, basketball pick. I just stopped there. And he's pushing on me, trying to hold on to her because she's still moving towards the door.
Is he some kind of tough guy? Does he think he is?
Anyone who thinks that they could lay a hand on a woman is not a tough guy.
And what is she doing at this point?
And she's just, she's just trying to be calm. She's trying to tell me, look, I just want to get in there. I came here to do my job.
Right.
I came here to represent my people. And I could hear him telling her, we don't need you in there. You can't go in there. Wow. Don't go in there.
I didn't know if anything was going to make the House Republican search for a speaker look ridiculous, but this is certainly it. Here, I've got a call. I know that we've had a couple of calls drop off. Guys, if you want to call back and ask Ray your question, I'll get to you. I'm sorry that you were on hold so long, but we're going to
stay for the questions for him.
Yeah, we're going to talk. We're going to talk to Phil from Blue Island. Phil has a question for you. Phil, welcome to WLS.
Hey, good morning. Hey,
morning.
My question, and I'm sure everybody's question is, hang on here, get rid of that one.
He's got it. He's running his own show over there.
There must be Carlos telling him to get off the radio.
Yeah. Texted
My
him.
question is that it's great that you want to try to house illegals here in Chicago, but the bigger question is what is going to happen in the future? What are you going to do with these people? If they're not going to be able to be naturalized, which I don't think they should be, then you only have another option, and that's to send them home.
So the gist of the question is, what's going to happen after we house the migrants and we move forward?
Well, I think that's been the failure of the presidency and this administration from the get-go. You allowed all these people to come in, claim asylum on grounds that don't qualify for asylum. You set up their merit hearings to determine whether or not they have grounds to pursue asylum 6 years from now. Do you think we're going to find them in 6 years to tell them that needing work was not grounds for asylum?
No,
we're not.
No.
And we've seen this play out before. We've seen this play out in Los Angeles County in the 80s and 90s that gave rise to the MS-13 there. We're going to see the same problems all over again because rather than adjudicate asylum cases now, we're just pushing this down the road when everyone hopes to be out of office by then.
I would think that after what we saw that could happen to a country on October 7th, that maybe we would wake up here. And let me tell you, if anybody has any questions to whether or not there are terrorist factions in this country, just take a look around at what's going on, because the answer is, there are.
And sympathizers and enablers and apologists.
Right. The
I work with many of them.
The sympathizers, I can't believe. All right, let me ask you this, Ray, because we talked last night about this very question. And the question I have, you're a gay man. The LGBTQ plus whatever community is aligning themselves with pro-Muslim groups that would not see their lifestyle favorable in any way. If many of these people that are aligning right now with Hamas and not the Palestinian people, but the Palestinian bad guys, if they were to go anywhere in the Middle East, they would not survive. How do they corroborate that?
Yeah, I was going to say, first I got to correct. It's not pro-Muslim, pro-terrorist.
Yeah, right.
Because they're supporting those individuals who had no problem killing thousands of people on October 7th. And I think the question we really have to ask is, has the LGBT movement locally and nationally been co-opted by individuals who are trying to create their own persecuted narratives so that they can push an agenda which we don't know yet?
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of people who don't necessarily share those same views. And in a way, they're lumping us all in under this rainbow umbrella as if we are all, because we're gay, lesbian, bi, whatever, all supportive of terrorist organizations like Hamas, if we're all supportive of, trying to take away the barriers between genders, between sexes, and between even things such as sex with minors. Because there are people who try to associate themselves with us.
All right.
And that's not us.
I know. And there's a group called Gays Against Groomers. I know. I'm well aware. And I know that the sum of all doesn't speak for everyone. I get that.
But I think what is bothersome to me is that so often people's moments are co-opted by other people trying to create some sort of sympathy for themselves. We've seen that when BLM tried to co-opt the oppression and the disinvestment in the black community. They did nothing for the black community, but they made themselves part of the movement so that they could profit. Yep. And we're seeing vestiges of that same mindset even amongst the LGBT community, in the gay and lesbian community, where people who are just acting out are trying to co-opt our moment so that they could spread their own personal messages for the purposes of trying to feel as though they have been victimized somehow themselves.
How does this fix itself in this city, Ray? I mean, I gosh, I could have you in here for 2 hours, but how does this end up reconciling itself? I mean, we have a mayor who seems to speak in lockstep with the Chicago Teachers Union. We have factions of our local government that want us to be socialists. You have constituents in your neighborhood that are proud of their heritage, but they love what America means to them. I don't think everybody that's coming here has that same goal in mind. Where does this get fixed, if it ever does?
We have a tendency in this city and in this country to get mad and stay home. We can't stay home anymore.
Yeah.
The crazies keep out voting us. The crazies keep out shouting us. And the 80% of this country, the middle, the common sense people who know right from wrong and can smell BS a mile away, they just stay home and say, you know what? I'm washing my hands of this. We can't wash our hands of the problems anymore. We have to start taking ownership and fighting back, which is why, generally speaking, I don't discuss what happens behind closed doors at city council, but you know what? Yesterday, I had to break that so that we can start moving forward and checking people and putting them in their place where they belong, especially when they're being so outlandish and outrageous. And we need to do that in every community and start holding all these elected officials, all these activists, all these so-called leaders who are trying to destroy our society. We need to start holding them accountable. Amen. Because we need to be, we can't be afraid of them. They should be afraid of us.
And I love this idea, this notion of you can't just go home, you got to take some action, which is great because a lot of us say, I'm fed up, I can't do it. You took the podium at the end of the meeting when the lights went off. Is this meeting, is it recessed or is it adjourned? Because I feel like there is a little bit of a murky water understanding there. Some folks think it's adjourned and some say we're coming back Tuesday, it's recessed.
Well, the people who tried their best to stop progress yesterday for 4 hours are saying that it is adjourned, but it is not, because nobody voted to adjourn the meeting until I jumped up there and motioned to recess until 9:45 on Tuesday.
Right.
You can only bend and twist the law so long before it catches up with you, and then finally their own logic worked against them because the presiding officer said there has to be a motion. That's all we could do, and she left without doing it. So we did it for her.
Ray, I got to leave it there with you, Mr. Congressman.
One last thing. Check my website.
Almost.
Don't worry about that. The whole studio's been up for grabs this morning. What is that Chicago Blue Line Support Foundation?
Light the Line Foundation will be on my website and Twitter, and I'll share it with you as well. The mother of Officer Ella French, who was murdered people like to call a routine traffic stop, along with her partner who was injured, Carlos Yanes, as well as Josh Blas, are putting together a not-for-profit to help support officers who respond to traumatic events like this so that they have the on-the-ground resources to support them as they're seeing these crises unfold, as they're seeing their co-workers, their fellow officers injured in very traumatic events. We want to make sure that we can raise as much money to help support our officers, because right now, what we know works in those situations is not what the police department is doing. So the three of them come together and are putting this foundation forward, and you can donate to them through my Facebook, Twitter, and what have you.
We'll put that out there on our socials for you, buddy.
Yep.
Nick, I'm sorry I'm horribly late getting to a traffic break, but I had to hear what Ray had to say. It's a mess here in Chicago. Let's see where it goes.